Hey everyone, welcome to the Kelly Berger Comedy Podcast. I'm the Kelly Berger that makes the Kelly Berger Podcast possible. Otherwise, it'd just be podcasts, and we always have enough of those. And today we're on episode number 18. So from now on, all episodes will be 18 plus. So get ready for some salty language and topics. And today, our guest today is a Chicago-based comedian who's been in the game for many, many years. And also, this is my first time meeting him face to face. It's Tim. How do you pronounce it?
Slagle. It rhymes with bagel.
Slagle. Now
And
I'm in the
and
mood
you
for.
and you're right. Everyone has a podcast. They're like moles.
Yep, and I want to make sure I get your name pronounced right because this is our first time meeting person to person before. This is my
Yeah.
first my first time meeting a stranger. But I've seen Tim perform before. Like I remember seeing you perform at Acme's Crash and Burn like during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. That was unique. That was a weird situation playing
Mhm.
to playing to. I've played to rooms that were that sparse before, but usually there's empty tables in between everybody. So
Yep.
it was strange, but that was we fortunately, yeah, we Crash and Burn. It's
Yep.
uh, it's coming up this October. I've Acme has been gracious enough to allow me to do it 12 times in the past, all through the pandemic. We didn't even take a break during the
Nice.
pandemic.
Are you part of this year too?
Oh God, I'm proud of every year. It's a great show that I produced. For those in the audience that don't know what it is, I invite three headliners to join me for a week writing comedy.
Yep.
And we all start on Tuesday with 20 minutes that have never been performed on any stage anywhere in the country, just straight out of our notebooks. And then we spend the week working on those 20 minutes apiece. We give notes after each show. We meet in the afternoon to workshop ideas, and it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And For the most part, we've all come out with a brand new 20 minutes of material at the end of the week. So
That's
it's
great. Yeah, I
make
remember. I remember when I was there then in 2020. I thought it would be fun to go there the first night to see how all the jokes are being
yeah.
created. And yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
that's I've been trying to get the club to sell week-long passes because it's the show evolves every night from
Yep.
Monday through Saturday. It gets a little bit tighter and the audience gets a little bit less familiar with the concept on Wednesday night well, I'm sorry, Tuesday night. It used to be Monday night, but it's whatever. Things have changed. On Tuesday night, it's pretty rough, but it's just comedy fans that come in for the show on Tuesday night.
Yep.
And slowly over the week, more and more civilians come in. That by Saturday, we're dealing with bachelorette parties and birthday parties, and the guys that didn't want to go out on a date, and I got dragged anyway. So it's
Yeah, I was going to ask like who comes more at the first. Yeah, like you said before, like less people come on Tuesday nights to sort of see when it develops, and then you get a solo
yeah,
crowd at
yeah.
the end.
Yeah, Tuesday night is just comedy fans. It's almost all comedy fans because a lot of comedians because there's nothing funnier to another comedian than watching a comedian bomb.
Yep.
That's usually that's the only time we laugh is when a comedy comic is bombing
And
because
we're like, oh, I'm not the only one who suffers like this.
yeah, we relate to the pain and we find it hilarious. So
Yep. Yeah, I
so
remember that
that's
one night you were on stage and you almost had enough mercy, and then Andy Erickson said, "No, you keep going."
yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, and also I like the idea of crash and burn, where you just start out and you develop new material, just see how the week evolves. And I've been down in Austin, Texas for a little bit doing comedy, and it was sort of like I went to 4 mics. I'm like, oh wait, this can be my own version of crash and burn. Just start this one mic and just work it up in the night.
The what? They
I
they have like a one night crash and burn.
Oh, they have multiple mics in one night in Austin, Texas. So I could
Uh,
hit like 4 mics in one
oh,
night.
okay. Oh,
Do
okay. So it's your own personal crash and burn.
Yep.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a heck of an advantage if you can get that much stage time packed but the trouble with the mic, it's just they just give you 5 minutes.
Hmm.
And this is a full 20. So this is you can actually develop a really nice bit in with that latitude the club gives you.
Hmm.
It's unique to Acme. It's the owner loves the concept. He when Robin Williams came in to work on a set, the owner just was fascinated watching a pro work model, go from night one to night three and put together that bit. And he couldn't take it. He could not watch. It's there's very few comics he can watch anymore, but he really enjoyed that. And I said, I think I could put together a show very similar to that. And that's when I pitched Crash and Burn. He loved the idea. And this is the 13th year we've been doing it.
Nice.
So
Who's on it this year?
uh I don't want to give away any names yet because we're
Okay.
still we're still we're still hammering it out. So until it's completely finalized, probably after Memorial Day or
All
Labor
right.
Day. I'm sorry, I always confuse those two. It's after Labor Day, we'll probably be ready to announce. But we do have the date. It will be October 8th through the 12th.
Nice.
So mark your calendars on that. It's definitely if you love comedy, it's a great show. Thursday night, what we do, and it's a lot of fun, is we actually after the show we give each other notes, but on Thursday night we allow the audience to give us notes, and that's a really really helpful because a lot of times what we see as comics aren't what the audience sees, and it's very rare that a comic act that outside of heckling, which is just pretty much you suck, it's just not really constructive criticism. It's rare that the audience actually has the opportunity to say, well, I thought maybe that joke was a little harsh, maybe that joke kind of went over my head. Um, I had an audience member. I've heard that before. It's like, oh dear.
All right.
None of the comics wanted to tell me I was doing a hack premise.
Oh, this is
It took the audience to point it out to me.
just gave him like another good selling point for Crash and Burn. Like it's one of the few times where another comic will actually give you some useful notes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's because there's two other comics to shoot them down if they give you something stupid.
Mhm.
Which is usually my suggestions. I say, "Oh, it would be really funny," and the comic who did the line would go, "Really?" And the other two comics go, "No, no,
Yeah,
no, don't listen to them."
I spent most of my time doing comedy in the Midwest, so I'm kind of tempted to just sort of put like a recorder in the back room so I can hear people talk about my set behind my back where I get the real advice.
Oh, you know how you do that? You just leave you put your AirPods in and you just
Mhm.
leave your phone on the table.
Right.
So if you really want to know what people say behind your back, technology allows it now.
Yeah, and it's kind of well, it's kind of sad like how your friends won't tell you like the advice you need and your enemies will say it as an attack on you, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's always I've always been one to speak my mind and people don't like that much.
yeah. And you have a good solid history with Acme. Like when did you start going to that club?
I've been headlining Acme almost as long as there's been an Acme. I've
Oh
been
wow.
yeah, I've been coming in at least twice a year for the past 33 years. It's I'm very, very fortunate. I've actually spent 66 weeks of my life in Minnesota. So I've essentially lived more than a year in Minneapolis.
All right. So you're used to the winters?
Well, oh yeah. Yeah, I've been there mid-January, so I've seen it at its worst. Um it's I'll actually be there this week. I'm coming for 4th of July, so I'll see it at its best as well.
Nice.
It's almost summer in Minneapolis, I think, this week.
Yeah, it's getting up to the 70s.
The snow's almost gone.
Yeah.
I think this will be the first time I've come where there's a pool at the hotel. I think this is the first time I've come that it's been open.
Oh, getting the VIP treatment.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I decide I want to, in the middle of the day, want to jump in a pool of kid urine, it'll
Yep,
be
and
available to me.
yep, you recently had like recorded a special at Acme. Like was it like last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, I did. I think that would have been 2 years now. I recorded a special. It was, I put together all the material that I can only do at Acme because they're a very tolerant club. They really don't care if you offend the audience.
Yep.
It's, as I always say, if, as long as it's funny, their only rule is as long it's got to be funny. And if it offends people, it's even funnier. So,
Mhm.
so I put together 45 minutes of my most offensive material, and turned it into a special. It's on the Acme Comedy YouTube page if you want to see it, called "Cancel This," which
It's just-
uh, which I thought was funny when I came up with the title, but it's kind of hack now too. In fact,
mhm.
Roseanne Barr, that's what she called her special. So it's, in hindsight, I wish I had been more selective. Yep. What it reminds me of is, a buddy had a trivia team and he named it Dilly Dilly when the Bud Light commercial first came out. And it wasn't more than a few months later that he was really embarrassed of the title.
Yeah, has anyone tried to cancel this, or did they not read the label?
I don't know. I don't know if enough people found it, and they didn't want to. They don't want to give you the satisfaction. It was like, it was like a double dog dare. It's like, nah, then we're just gonna ignore it. We don't have to cancel it.
Yeah, was it a lot of fun doing a lot of, I want to say, conservative material in liberal Minneapolis?
Oh, it's always been. I've always taunted the city. I've always, which is why Acme gives me 2 weeks a year. They say that, the other 50 weeks a year they have a liberal comic. It's, in order to get diversity, they have to bring me in 2 weeks a year. And at the time when they were doing it, I was the only conservative comic they could find. But there's a whole, especially down in Austin, I think, right? You were down there. There's like a wave of kind of conservatives down there.
It's still like a healthy mix of everything back and forth. Like Rogan brought in like a whole wave of new people, and there's still like the old liberal Austin guard that's still
Yeah,
like
no, I'm
people
quite
go.
sure, but the club rocks. It's, my God, I was down there. I said, I'll catch an open mic night, and if I can't could get on the show, I'll just come in and see the show. Didn't realize you got to make reservations 2 weeks in advance to see an open mic night at Sunday at 7 o'clock.
Yep.
It's crazy what's going on in Austin right now.
Yeah, the
It's
mother.
definitely the center of comedy in America right now.
Yep. There's like a lot of mics and that are located straight right on 6th Street, which I think that was makes like an awesome, like a unique comedy scene. Like you have so many mics in like one centralized location.
Right. Right. Well, that's the way Boston was, when like Jay Leno was coming up. It's, Boston was the place you wanted to be because it was kind of the same thing. There was like 5, 6 clubs that you could get on, that you could do a set on within, on pretty much on the same street. It was an incubator for comedy. And then,
Yeah.
San Francisco was pretty hot for a while. Minneapolis was hot like that for a while.
Mhm.
Chicago was, but I think, it's definitely Austin right now.
Yep. It's the comedy hotspot right now. And I was there for 2.5 years and then moved back to central Minnesota for a little bit. And I'm working on getting back down to Austin pretty soon.
Uh-huh.
It's,
What's keeping you?
well, it was sort of like the whole job and money thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Austin used to be cheap to live, I understand. It's, not so much anymore.
It's the California magnet.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And you started comedy in Detroit?
Yeah, I started, a club called the Comedy Castle in Detroit. Moved to Chicago in 1986.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah. to become a star, and look how that's gone.
Yep. So you started comedy during the '80s boom.
Yeah, yeah, I was there. I was there. I was fortunate enough to be at the bottom of a wave just as it was starting to break,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. I went pro within a couple years of my first time on stage, and it should not have been. It's I admire the dedication of comics today, is that they'll work 15, 20 years before they can go full time.
Mhm.
And I was still a green open micer, and I was making ridiculous money because there was far more work than there was were comics.
Yep.
So
And it does take a really long time to get good at comedy, like like just to get comfortable on stage, so your body's like used to being
yeah,
up in public and knowing like those timing tricks and like how to raise your volume on like a punchline.
yeah. Well, I don't know if raising the volume on a punchline is good. Sometimes it seems a little corny. So, I mean, yeah, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, this is like the part I want you to hear.
Exactly. It's for me, some of the great punchlines are where they go down. Like it's the exact opposite of what you expect, but sometimes it can be really powerful. So it's my opinion is you're really comedy when you don't want to be on stage.
Right.
That's the point. It's like, oh my God, I gotta go on stage again. At that point, you don't care. You know what I mean? You're not so at that point the audience sees that you don't have that you don't have the butterflies, that you're totally comfortable, that you own the stage. It's because you own the stage, but you don't want it. If that makes any sense.
Well, it's sort of like when this, like approaching comedy is sort of like the same way as approach women. Like the less you're enamored and in love with it, the more that comes to you.
Exactly. Exactly. You get hit on the most when you're in a relationship.
Just act like you're the hot item or the
Yep.
prize.
Yep. 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 It's yeah, you gotta be playing your A game if you want me to screw up my home life.
Yeah. And to Tim, Tim, yeah, I got. Do you have any advice for young comics starting out today? Is like how to work the scene or like stage presence?
You know, as far as how to be a comic today, I don't have a clue. I I'll be honest there. The industry today is really hard for me to figure out because it's foreign from, where I grew up. I've been doing comedy since you used to send cassette tapes into a booker for as an audition. So I mean, how long is that? That predates VHS.
All
So
right.
as far as that, um, I think two crucial things is, yeah, you just got to keep getting up, and you've got to write. It's writing cannot be underestimated. And if you're because people comics will ask me, they'll say, what should I'm going to college, what should I be majoring in? And I always tell young people, business, for two reasons. Number one, always have something you can make. If you know business, you can always make money.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that a comic with business sense will go, and no talent will go a lot further than a comic with a lot of talent and no business sense.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because, like, it's also like the law of. And also, I want to advise people like get familiar with like technology because it seems like the comics who know how to post a clip and get things recorded tend to get noticed much more quicker than people who sort of like write down and just expect like stuff
Yeah.
to come to them.
Yeah. Oh no, no, absolutely. But that's not, I don't know that that's healthy for comedy in general, what's going on right now, because you've got a lot of TikTok stars
Yep.
that have that 5 minutes and that got a million views and people will come to see it, but that's all they have is that 5 minutes.
Yep.
That was a problem. That was a lot of problem in the 80s. There were these comics in LA and New York, and all they had was their 5 minute Tonight Show set. That was all they could do was that's all they did when they were doing all the clubs around LA and New York. They did their 5 minute Tonight Show set. So they would go out into the Midwest where all the work was, and they would do their 5 minute Tonight Show set, kill, and then 40 minutes of where you're from. And the bookers did not enjoy that. And that's, I think, a lot what's going on with the TikTok is that somebody will go to see a TikTok star and
Mhm.
they'll say, well, yeah, I saw that 5 minutes on TikTok. And then what else have they got? And nothing.
Yeah, it's not the
So,
same thing when I'm looking at it through a screen or
yeah, yeah, and I mean, there's always been that thing where they would put a comic who wasn't really a good comic, but he could draw because maybe he
Mhm.
was on a sitcom or something like that, and that it got people into the clubs, but it didn't really further comedy, which for me is an art form. I think it's a uniquely American art form and it's the writing I think is at the heart of it. And
Mhm.
it's as comics we have to write a lot. I was just talking to the owner of Acme, and he said, it's not like a musician. A musician can write one hit song,
Yep.
and he can work the rest of his life on that one hit song. As comics don't have that ability. Comics, you once you've heard a joke, it's really hard to write a joke that you like to hear over and over again.
Yep.
I mean, there's a few people that have mastered the ability that people like to memorize the comics bits. It's when we were in college, Monty Python and Steve Martin. We used to like to memorize those albums. I think probably before when I was in college, probably Cheech and Chong, a lot of people would memorize. It's
Well,
the first time I worked with Lewis Black, there were people in the audience that had memorized his bits. So it's very, and they want to hear them again. And it's very rare to be a comic that has that's almost like a hit song.
yep. And yeah, yeah, sort of perfect like a good joke at being like in front of like so many different audiences to sort of progress it.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've always felt that it's kind of the difficult thing about comedy is that if you say want to be a violinist, is you can go to the store and you can buy a violin, at least a cheap one. If you want a good one, that's quite an expense, but you can buy a violin and play it. Our instrument is the comedy club. It's they all have different acoustics. They have different ways, that you have to hit the strings in order to get the response. But that's basically what it is you tell the joke and then you hear the acoustics, the music come back to you and laughter. And and unfortunately, there's only a handful of instruments in the country, and that so and far more musicians that want to practice on them. So it is very difficult to get that stage time.
Another advantage like musicians have is they're usually at the start they usually like play to people's emotions, and comics they try to play with people's logic.
Yeah, no, that's true. There's an emotional factor too, and I think the best comics are able to hit that.
Yep.
Is that it isn't just the logic. I mean, Stephen Wright, I think, was probably the best example of a comic that played with the logic. But there was no very little emotional sacrifice watching a Stephen Wright set. Whereas you got Louis C.K. and he's tapping into the darkness of your soul.
Hmm. Yep. And oh yeah, another thing I want to talk about you is about your dry bar special.
Oh yeah,
That whole experience.
it was wonderful. It what an amazing setup they have
Yep.
that they've turned their club into a television studio. I think it was 7 cameras. It's a 7 camera shoot, and it's because there's no cocktails. It's set up like a theater. All the seats are facing the stage. There's no tables. There's no distractions. And the audience just loves the comedy, and they sell out. They sell out every show and give every comic a standing ovation. It's you come in and they treat you like the star you always thought you should be. And they
Yeah.
fly you in, they put you up at a nice hotel, they give you anything you want. There's makeup artists, there's because nothing prepares you for going on stage more than having a young lady brush your face with powder. That's
Wow, that's amazing.
and yeah, I loved doing that show. I loved it more than they loved me. I did a 45-minute show for them, and I think the first cut that they made, I think was 35 minutes. I think it's 23 is what they kept out of the 45 I gave them. And I don't even think they wanted those. I don't even think they I think it was a little too edgy for their demographic, or so they felt.
Yep, Dry Bar
Um,
is famous for producing like clean comedy. And did they give you like
oh,
the
oh
rules?
yeah, no, no, no. Oh gosh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, they explained, that it's not just clean. There's also, you're not supposed to talk about drugs, and you're not supposed to talk about drinking, and you're not supposed to what word language that you think might not be swearing is actually swearing
Oh,
in
really? Like, what's some of the
uh,
words that would be surprised that are
well,
kind
you
of swear
couldn't
words?
say oh God.
Okay.
It's and I had to go through my set, and I didn't even realize that I said "oh God" as like a punchline, and had to change that to "gosh." So it's yeah, it's very I think they called it Ogden. It was in Ogden, Utah. It was Ogden Clean, and they said a lot of people don't understand Ogden Clean. Oh no, Provo, Ogden. I think it flew into. I don't remember, but it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, but it was, it was good for me. I enjoyed the fact that I was able to, put together, because, working the clubs, I'm not really a dirty act, but I tend to use a little coarse language, and it's easy for me to edit out. So it's really nice for me to realize that I had that ability to do a fully clean set, and I
Nice.
I enjoyed it. It's when you're working a club, and the comic before you is talking about just filth.
Hmm.
It's really hard to give the audience subtle after that. But when it's an audience that expects clean,
Hmm.
um, it's even the slight tinge of being wrong will get a huge laugh, and I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I watched one of your sets from the Dry Bar special. I'm like, I was surprised like this passed for a clean comedy, like your story of the goth girl date.
Yeah, yeah. I think that might have been the one that upset them, because it's clean, but
Yep.
it's just extremely dark.
And that's
And
another reason why I like enjoy watching Dry Bar because people have like this pre notion of clean comedy being like boring, but
yeah,
then you see so many people who can be able to make a clean, entertaining set.
yeah. Well, when I was coming up, comedy was all clean. It was the only comedy that we saw was on television, and that was television in the day when Rob and Laura Petrie couldn't be shown in bed together. So I mean, it was very television was very clean. That was all where all the comedy was. So the only time you would find dirty comedy, the only place you could hear dirty comedy, because there was no cable, was on Comedy Records, and
Mhm.
that's where the dirty comics proliferated.
Yep. And now today we hear a lot of comedy on the internet, and the internet is full bore.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's it was a neat thing. It's a neat thing about Dry Bar that people who actually want. I think there's a station on Sirius too. There's that you can listen to comedy with the whole family, and I think that's it's kind of neat. I think it's something we've lost is comedy has just gotten where who can be to the point where who can be the most shocking, and we've lost the delightful aspects of comedy like irony
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
And also, we live in an age with like so much information where almost everyone hears everything. We're sort of like numb to shocking comedy.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you can have when you can with a couple mouse clicks you can be watching girls do unspeakable things. There's it's a where the society has become extremely coarse.
Yeah.
And it was the nice thing about Utah too. It kind of was it was almost it was like Amish with electricity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know well, I wouldn't want to say like clean comedy or dirty comedy is better or worse than the other. It just depends on how you use it. Like, I've noticed like there's two types of audiences. Like, people who want to go see like dirty comedy want to go to escape and unwind, like the kid who wants to take a break from his parents and church.
Hmm.
And then there's the other kind of comedy crowd that just want to take a break from all the negativity.
Yeah. 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 That's another piece. That would be the third piece of advice I'd give it to a young comic starting is work clean. And it's not that and I know the way I'm talking, the way I'm pitching Dry Bar and saying it was a great experience and everything. It sounds like I'm a prude. I'm not. I've done filthy comedy, But here's the thing: is that a clean comic, a good clean comic, can work a dirty room.
Yep.
A dirty comic cannot work a clean room.
Yep.
And it's as far as so your opportunity for work doubles if you're working clean.
And also,
If you can only work dirty, you've cut your ability to work in half.
yep. And also, as a clean comic, you can not only host like comedy hosts, you can also host like business seminars, radio shows.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's corporate gigs. Um there's radio, cruises, uh churches. I mean, there's a whole circuit of church comedy that a lot of comics don't even know about, where the money for that is really good. So it's yeah. So it's and also when you're working when you strive to be clean is you can always go dirty after you've mastered the art of being a clean comedian. It's I think a lot of dirty comics never really look at the art, never really look into their timing or their material. Is that they're so going after the shock that they've lost they lost the ability to be subtle. And like I said, a clean comic can work dirty a lot easier than a dirty comic can work clean. So
But I think
it's
a lot of dirty comics, people trying to be dirty comics, they sort of like watch the pros be dirty, and it's sort of like watching like a skateboarder watch a pro skateboarder do their tricks and thinking, oh, that's how you do it, and then they try to do it on stage and they sort of fall flat.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah, I've seen a lot of that lately. I still like to hang out at the open mics in Chicago because it's fun to see people who actually enjoy doing comedy. There's so much bitterness for anybody that's been doing it, 20, 30 years, that it's nice to see people that are doing purely for the love of the art again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do see some comics just filthy, and it's the wrong direction to start.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask you about like how comedy was back in the day versus like I want to say like what was kind of like before and after, like I want to say like Facebook, and like how much social media has changed the state of comedy where you.
Yeah, yeah. Before social media, I mean, it really took a lot of time, effort, and expense to build up a portfolio. It's you know, to get the headshots and the promo materials printed up because there were no web pages, to get a good, you know, good watchable VHS tape. I mean, all that stuff took a lot of time. And until you had all that, you really couldn't call yourself a comedian.
Yep.
It's now somebody says, I want to be a comedian, and you
This.
know, then it's comedian John Smith Facebook page the very next day.
Yep.
Yeah, and then take the phone and go to an open mic night, and there's me on stage doing comedy. Hey, look at that. It's a lot less work, and I
Yep.
think I think that lack of work has allowed a lot of not funny to squeak through.
Yep. But
It
the ease of technology has been sort of like a blessing and a curse. Like you can get your voice out there easy, but also so can all the lazy people. And
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, think when Dickens was writing Tale of Two Cities. It's what is it, 600 pages, longhand with a quill. Imagine the hand cramps that it took for him to actually make that novel appear. It's the dedication that he had to that story that he wanted to put to paper. Well, it had to be so great for him to put up with such adversity. It's now with word processing. It's you know, and even with the typewriter, you still had to be able to kind of type without it making mistakes. You still kind of had to hit the right keys and not make mistakes. And you might not have got as many hand cramps, but it was still a little bit of work to type. But with word processing, man, it's become so easy. And I think the manuscripts that publishers had to go through, I think if you even had a manuscript, you could get published if you would put that much effort back in Dickens' day to that you could probably get published. And then when typewriters came out, probably a little bit less. And nowadays, I don't know if there's any way you can get your book read by a publisher. It's you can self-publish and hope that, you know, hope it catches on, I guess. And same thing, you know, same thing with film. You know, the amount of film, the expense back when you had to pay for development and processing of films. Very few people could actually put together a full-length movie on their own with their buddies. And now anybody. So, you know, the amount of crap that is enormous.
yep. And it's sort of like with the ease of technology and making things more easy to put out there. You
Yeah.
sort of have to manage your expectations. Like, okay, this is good. Maybe the people I sort of notice. Try to rephrase this right. I've noticed like the age of right now, we got like two types of performers. We got like the people who try to perform for the room, and the people who try to perform for the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big problem. That's a big problem too. Is that for a while the fad was to get a good heckler line on TikTok, and people would love that. It's I've actually got one from the flip phone era. It's I've actually got it at Acme. I think back when they had a green curtain. That's how long ago it was
Ooh.
at Acme, and I had put a heckler tape up that kind of went not viral. It never went that big, but it got a lot of views. So I mean that's I I can't say that I'm innocent from the heckler video fad, but I think it's done two things. Is number one, it's made comics want to go back to crowd rap, which you know, I'm sorry, you pay for a show. You didn't pay
Yeah.
to see some guy talking to a drunk in the front row. That's you know, that's not entertainment. But you know, but it gets the clicks on TikTok. Also, I think it's encouraged audiences to be participatory,
Hmm.
which you know, some comics it works with, doesn't work with me. I'm not.
Yeah. It's
I don't have the patience. I don't have the I don't have the patience to be clever when somebody heckles me.
I, s- I advise people like to use your crowd work skills like the same way like a cop uses his gun. Like you only use it when you absolutely need to.
Exactly. exactly. It's a taser first, maybe.
Yep, and I suppose also with the internet, like remember like when before like everything sort of went viral, like a comedy show was sort of like a secret. It sort of like felt like a special like secret location where you, hey, we're just gonna talk about the world from this secret location and just have like reveal our dirty secrets behind this curtain.
Yeah, yeah, that's that for me was when comedy was the best. Is that back when I started, you would have to. It was a lot like what Austin is now. Is that you would have to make reservation weeks in advance if you wanted to get in to see a comedy show, and so it was kind of that same thing. It was the strip clubs never have windows. You can never look in and take a peek and see what's going on. The only way you get to see what's going on is if you pay the money. And that's I think that's when comedy was the best, is people wanted to see what was going on in this dirty, dark basement. Um and I think a lot of that is coming back. I think with clubs making you check in your phones at the
Yep.
door and put it in a bag so you can't use your phone. So yeah, so what happens on stage just goes out into the ether,
Yep.
you know.
They lock your
Yeah.
phones up at the mothership. And I just remember
Yeah.
like that just made like the whole experience of this going to show more enjoyable because you're just focused right on
On the
stage.
mo in the moment. If they would have had that policy when Michael Richards was on stage, he'd still have a career.
Mm-hmm. And also, do you feel like with comedy being so public, do you feel like that's what pushed like PC culture and hyperdrive?
No, I think what pushed PC culture and hyperdrive was the last frontier was the comedy stage. It's you think about it, the correctniks have taken over the entire country. It's, you can't say what you think at work, you can't say what you think in public, you can't say it at school, you can't. There's nowhere where you're allowed to say something politically incorrect except for a comedy club. And I think that drove the correctniks nuts. That there was still a place where you could go. There was a room where you could go, and there would be someone saying stuff that they didn't want to be said. And I think that's what drove a lot of it. And I think they lost.
Yeah.
I think I think it's actually been great for comedy. It's
Yep. And with my experience with doing comedy the past year, like my experience, like 90% of the people who want to censor comedy are mostly other comedians.
Yeah, yeah, that kind of gets under my craw. It's like, come on, we're in the same business, you know.
Yeah.
It's what I'm saying. You might find it. You might be able to get people to write letters and find offensive but I can find people that don't like what you say on stage either. So let's just agree that we'll play to our own audience. And if I decide that I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. If I decide that all my crowds are going to be Klan members, so what? Don't go to my show. But it's not that. I don't appeal to Klan members. It just was an extreme example.
Yeah. And also they are easy. They're one of the groups of people who are easy to offend.
What, the Klan members?
Yeah, like one thing I've noticed is like the people who get really offended by racist material are people who are racist.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Let's see. Oh yeah, I was doing looking some research up you, and I also noticed you had a spot in a cameo in a documentary called "Michael Moore Hates America."
Yeah. Yeah, how about that? Mike Wilson, the star director, writer, producer of the film, was a buddy of mine, and he there was a bit I was doing that he thought was hilarious. Is that it's a bit that I've actually seen other people recycle since then. I dropped it years ago, but the idea is that the prostitution is equal opportunity for ugly people. So that
So that's what got. I remember watching
and
that
he thought it
documentary
was. Oh, I'm
like
sorry. Go ahead.
I remember watching that documentary like years ago during my most liberalist years. which was
Uh-huh.
usually which for most people it's like their early 20s when they're going to
Sure.
college.
Sure.
And that documentary like hit me off guard because I was expecting like a hardcore conservative hit piece.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it wasn't entirely. It was a little love letter. I was just talking to him the other day. He's actually thinking of working on a new project now that now that he's at the other side. When he was doing that, he was, his dad had just lost his job, and now he's actually his dad's age. He's as old now as his dad was then. So he's thinking of doing another bookend documentary. So
Oh, nice.
yeah. Yeah, I can get you. I can probably get him on the show if you want.
All right.
He's a big fan of comedy. He has been for years.
Nice. And do you got any? I think we'll wrap this up soon. Do you got any upcoming projects coming up?
Well, I will. I don't know when this is going up, but I'm coming into Acme this week. I will be there Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday this week. We're doing a showcase. I'm doing with John DeBoer and Greg Fiddler. But we're splitting up. We're splitting up the stage time and just doing showcasing all week.
Nice.
Then I'll be back at Acme, uh, uh, Labor Day weekend is that whole week, and then of course Crash and Burn, October 8th through the 13th. Did I get that right? I should have that date. 8th through 12th. Crash and Burn. Crash and Burn the 13th, we're calling it. This will be the 13th year. And of course, you can always just go to timslagle.com to find out more about the Tim Slagle World Tour.
All right. Well, Tim Slagle, thank you. It was so nice meeting you for the
Yeah.
first time.
Thank you, Kelly.
And it was,
Maybe I'll see you next week, huh?
yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right. And that's been our podcast episode. And this is the first one without actual tech support because I can now afford like the $20 Zoom fee because I'm not nearly homeless now.
Well, that's good.
All right. And